tuning in today. It's great to not really see you, but to have you on the line. I really enjoy presenting this webinar as I think it is a really great inside look into how to submit a really great Energy Star application that makes your job a lot easier. So as Maddie said, my name is Alice Bell. I am with ICF and I am an implementation support contractor working with EPA to support the Energy Star for Commercial Buildings program. Before we get started, there are a couple of notes I want to reiterate as well. Today's webinar is going to focus on US buildings, and it's going to assume that you have some familiarity with Portfolio Manager already. So if you are outside the United States and Canada, please note that eligibility is somewhat different for buildings and that you should go ahead and create your Portfolio Manager property record before going through this webinar. So if you have not done so, I recommend checking out our Portfolio Manager 101 session, which is going to be held next Tuesday around the same time as this. And it's also a live presentation to help you get kind of an initial insight into the ins and outs of Portfolio Manager. Second, as you have questions during the presentation, please go ahead and send those in the chat. That helps us kind of gather them in advance and get to more of them hopefully during the Q&A. On that note, there will be a Q&A, so please feel free to send in all your questions of any kind. If you have a question that is very specific to a property or to a glitch, something that is really kind of individualized, we recommend sending that in our help desk, and they'll be able to troubleshoot with you on a much more personal and individual level than we can really do successfully in this setting. And so with that, I will go ahead and get us started. So in the training today, we're going to gain an understanding of why Energy Star certification is actually beneficial to you and see some of the steps to apply for certification for your properties. Specifically, we're going to cover the value of the certification, how to become eligible, and then how to use Portfolio Manager to apply. We will also track the status of your application in Portfolio Manager and walk you through the process to receiving your actual award packet. Again, this session does assume that you have already set up your property in Portfolio Manager and completed its use details and energy information, and now you're interested in learning more about how to apply for this certification from EPA. So according to a survey conducted in 2019, Energy Star is one of the most recognized and trusted environmental labels in the United States, and it symbolizes really just superior energy efficiency performance. So being certified associates you with a long history of trust and integrity that comes from the program by having this little label on your building. We've all seen the Energy Star rated printers and appliances, and this does the same thing for your buildings. So on that note, for more than 20 years, this program has identified the most energy efficient products, buildings, plants, and new homes, all based on the most up-to-date government standards. And so today, every single label that you see has been verified by a really rigorous certification review process. Today, we're focusing on commercial buildings, which has certified, almost 40,000 buildings in the program's history. Now you'll see on this chart that the number of certified buildings has been increasing steadily each year. And you'll note also that all of these bars add up to more than that total that was on the previous slide. And that's because buildings need to recertify each year to retain their Energy Star certified status. So just because your building was a superior performer last year does not mean it's performing at the same level this year. A great example of this is COVID. A lot of buildings had substantially impacted use patterns because of the pandemic. And so, you'll see these usage over year to year is not quite comparable to itself. On the flip side, however, this does come down to continued operations and maintenance improvements, among other efforts and changes made at properties. So you'll see that this is an annual label that is set up that way to drive continuous and sustained improvement and constant vigilance about how to improve your energy efficiency at your properties. It's more than just a label. Energy Star provides a whole framework upon which thousands of organizations have built energy management programs, and it helps to bridge the divide between engineering and facilities teams and everyone else using the building, whether it's occupants, employees, students, management, customers, whoever they are. And this is because everyone really does have a role to play in saving energy, and Energy Star is what brings everyone together and brings them in. So Energy Star certification carries three main messages about buildings. First, that cost-effective energy management is being practiced. Second, the building management is taking concrete actions to protect the environment through energy efficiency improvements. And third, that building operations and occupant safety and comfort have not been sacrificed in pursuit of better energy efficiency. I'm going to pause here. We're about 5 minutes in. Please continue to send your questions in if you have them. No pressure, but if you have anything come up, please do let us know. Additionally, if you have to leave the presentation at any time, you will see a survey pop up in your browser, and this is going to get some feedback from you. Please do fill this out if you have notes to give. We do use this information pretty heavily to improve our program, so we really appreciate if you're able to take the time to give us your feedback. So with that, we will continue. Some additional values of Energy Star certification include reduced operating expenses compared to non-certified properties, and that comes down to managing your energy use and not paying for energy that you're wasting or not using. You'll also see better control of operating expense changes and escalations, especially key in this times of inflation. And better overall management of your property. You'll see what's going on, you'll see where the money drains are, and you'll be able to control for those, as well as work with your occupants to control those. Now, we're not going to go into this graph in a ton of detail, but in general, this summarizes several studies that were conducted about the added market value of certified buildings. Rental premiums range from 5 to 16%, sale price premiums range from 0 to 31%, and occupancy premiums range from 0 to 6%. So this is some actual tangible value that is seen in the retail market from rental to buying and selling. Seeing the Energy Star on a building really conveys that your building is more efficient than 75% of similar buildings nationwide. So on average, Energy Star certified properties use 35% less energy and cause 35% less greenhouse gas emissions than their peer buildings. So the building in this picture is not just for flavor. This is the Cambridge Savings Bank, which is in Harvard Square, right across from Harvard Yard, and it has the distinction of being the oldest Energy Star certified building in the country. And so it was built in 1820, and that means that it is has the oldest initial construction date. It's not necessarily the oldest, the longest running, like the first certified building. So it goes to show really also that energy efficiency is not just the province of new buildings either. So now that we've discussed the value of certification, let's talk about how to obtain it. So these eligibility criteria on screen only apply to EPA building certifications. If you're interested in candidate certification, you can click on the link on the slide. When you receive these in your email, this slide, the link will be live, so you can click on it. There's no need to copy that down or frantically try and type it into your browser. So to be eligible for certification, a property must be located in the United States, U.S. territories, or owned by the U.S. government. It must be one of the eligible property types, which we'll get into in a moment. And it must receive an Energy Star score of 75 or higher that reflects the entire property or campus for certain types. It must include all energy use on the property in a 12-month period. It can be any 12-month period, not just calendar years. And they must be reporting accurate property use details, with vacancy accounted for in the appropriate property types. So these are the property types that are eligible to become certified. You'll see that a couple of these are marked with asterisks, including barracks, residence halls and dormitories, and wastewater treatment facilities. These are eligible to receive a score, but not to be certified. I will also note that medical office buildings are a new, re-addition to this slide. Medical offices were not able to be certified for a while, a couple years there, because the data used to back up the score was too far out of date. So we had to retire the score briefly, but that has now been returned as of February of last year. So it's been about a year. But I just like to kind of highlight that for folks who may not be aware or may have medical offices in their portfolio that can now be certified. So the score itself, what actually goes into that? In general terms, the score is a percentile ranking of your building compared to similar buildings nationwide. And this was developed to provide some context for assessing the performance of your building compared to its peers, and to provide a simple number that is easily conveyed to a range of stakeholders who might have a stake in your building. So on this scale, a 50 represents median performance. The little highlighted score of 62 means that the building is performing better than 62% of its peers. And the blue 75 to 100 band is the band in which the property is eligible for the Energy Star score or certification. That means that the minimum score to earn recognition is a 75, which means the property is performing better than 75% of its peer buildings nationwide. So how did we develop this score? Well, we started with a nationally representative survey. The CBEX survey, the Commercial Building Energy Consumption Survey, gathers data on building characteristics and energy use from thousands of buildings across the US every few years. Second, EPA will analyze and filter this data to ensure that it is sufficiently robust and high quality to provide the backing for our third step, which is a statistical model that correlates the energy data of the property use details to identify what is driving the energy use at the property and accounts for weather variations. Use details that are in Portfolio Manager are considered to be those driving energy use at the property, and they do vary according to the type. So for hospitals, we ask for the number of MRI machines because these are known to drive energy use in hospital properties. Obviously, most K-12 schools do not contain MRI machines, so we do vary the use details that we ask for depending on the property type that is in question. Some examples of use details in offices include operating hours, number of computers, and number of workers on main shift. And then the final step is a comparison of the actual data for a building, the data that you are entering, to the modeled estimate to determine where the building ranks relative to its peers. And this is where this is the sort of end interaction between you as the portfolio manager user and benchmarking professional with the EPA Energy Star scoring model that determines your score. So now that we've gotten into some of the nitty-gritty of the value of the score, as well as some details about how to become eligible, let's go over how to actually apply. So at a high level, there are 6 steps. First, you've got to benchmark your property in Portfolio Manager to determine its score. And once you receive a score of 75 or higher, you become eligible to apply for certification. Again, this score is based on a comparison of that scoring model from the previous slide with your energy data being entered into Portfolio Manager. And this energy data must include 12 months of energy data for all fuel types, as well as the operational characteristics in effect during that time period. Once your building meets that minimum score and other eligibility criteria, such as the property type, you're then given access to the online application in Portfolio Manager. At that point, a licensed professional must conduct the site visit to verify the information in your application and make sure that the property's indoor environmental quality is sufficiently robust and not being compromised by energy efficiency improvements. For the purposes of certification, EPA defines a licensed professional as either a professional engineer or a registered architect. They can be a third party that you've hired, or they can be a member of your organization. EPA does recommend that they follow the guidance provided in the Licensed Professionals Guide, which is found online. Additionally, the LP can have someone in their employ conduct a site visit on their behalf, by proxy, but the application that is submitted to Energy Star must have the LP's seal and signature. After the LP has finished that site visit, they have to complete the rest of the application in Portfolio Manager, concluding with a printing and signing the PDF application before scanning it and re-uploading it to Portfolio Manager. After the application is submitted, it enters our review queue, and EPA will contact you with any questions that arise during the review process. You'll receive emails and get notifications through Portfolio Manager, and can respond via email to provide any other information that is necessary. And then the final sixth step there is your final status, approval, etc. And if you're approved, you get a fun little decal in the mail, as well as a nice congratulatory letter and certificate from EPA. And so at this point, I'm going to queue up my screen share to show you all how this actually goes. So give me 2 moments to get that up and running, and then we'll continue. All right, so on your screen, you should be seeing a page on the Energy Star for Commercial Buildings website titled Benchmark Your Building Using Energy Star Portfolio Manager. If you are not seeing that, please feel free to either message in the chat or let us know another way. So this is where you can log into Portfolio Manager. There's a little widget on the side that allows you to enter your password and log in, or you can just go to energystar.gov/portfolio manager. That's what I've done here. So we can see that my portfolio tab is all populated, got a bunch of properties in here, lots of demos. And we're going to use a pre-existing test office that I have created for this presentation. Again, if you are unfamiliar with Portfolio Manager or you have not created your property record yet, you'll need to do that first before starting this walkthrough. So for properties with a score of 75 or higher and no other data flags, you'll see the Apply for Energy Star Certification box pop up here. Now you'll notice that mine does not say apply yet, and that's because I wanted to leave some issues unresolved to show you all one of my favorite tricks in this tool, which is that if you're not eligible, you're not sure why, because notice I have no alerts, I have no red exclamation marks anywhere in my property. My meters look great. Nothing seems wrong. If you click on this little blue text here, it'll tell you exactly why you're not eligible. And more than that, it'll tell you what meters are causing problems and what is actually missing. So we can see that my natural gas meter has data that is too old to be eligible, and so I have to update that first before I even apply. So let's do that together. So to do that, you can either navigate to your Energy tab here, or you can click on the link to the metering question from this little pop-up. So I'm going to do that now. You can see that our basic information is still true, but we need to add some other entries. So down here at the bottom, you'll select add another entry. You can do that repeatedly until you have enough. And I'm going to fill in some made up data to get us over the eligibility hump, and we can proceed with our application. Once you've updated your information, you can hit Save Bills, and you'll see that they populate there at the bottom, about 4 months. And if we return to our How to Apply homepage, we are given the option to now finish. This is where you'll come to begin or resume an application for your property. So the first step is going to be to fill out the About Your Property page. You'll notice that the name and address of the building is already displayed as entered by you in Portfolio Manager when you created the property initially. You'll need to provide a description, which is not ever public. It's just to help the review team understand what is actually going on here. If there are special characteristics about the building or anything else that you want to call out to us, this is a great place to note that. This is an example of a pretty solid property description. You can add more detail than this if you would like, but this one is going to clarify that this is actually an office. It has a normal business pattern, and it was built in 2020. So it's pretty unambiguous that this is actually an office. Maybe there's a coffee shop on the ground floor. Any detail that you want to add, this is a great place to do that. If your property is located in Canada, you'll need to fill out this COVID-19 changes description page. And this is designed to help us understand how the property was impacted by COVID and whether any use details need to be updated to reflect that use pattern. Now, this was actually in effect for US properties as well until recently, but we retired that question as many buildings are back to normal use patterns, and we did not feel that it was necessary to continue asking that of US properties. The last entry on this page is going to be your listing in the Registry of Certified Buildings. And you should enter the name of the property as you want it publicly displayed in this registry. So it can be the same thing as you put up here for your title. It can be your address, whatever you want. I'm going to say this is like First Street Office Building. It can be a colloquial name. It can be whatever you want it to be. You're also going to be given the option to include a photo in this listing. That'll also appear in the registry, but it's completely optional. I will note if you upload a photo that is in any way like not the building, or it's unclear, or it's corrupted, the review team will catch that in the process and will let you know. But that kind of issue does not hold up the approval of your property. It's just going to be something we'll notify you of if it does end up being an issue. So once we complete these fields, we'll hit continue. The next step is to fill out the contact information for your property. And in general, the drop-down menu of choices for each contact will list organizations and individuals that are already entered into your contacts list in your Portfolio Manager account. So folks whose information already lives up here in this contacts menu. So for each of these, you'll want to select who owns the property, who manages the property, and whether you've been assisted by a service and product provider to manage the energy at your property. Then you'll choose the contact information for your application. And this is really key because these are the folks who are going to be reached out to with any questions from EPA on the review team, or excuse me, on the review process. So the applicant primary contact should be a person who is able to answer these questions in particular. So you can see my colleague Rose is listed here, but any of my other options are there. Save that. The second contact, the signatory, should be a representative of the property owner or manager. So I'm going to choose person. And the third person is a licensed professional who has verified the application. And in many cases, these are all going to be 3 different people, although the LP is able to sign if they are an employee of the building owner. Now, if the folks that you're trying to add do not use Portfolio Manager or you have not connected with them in advance, you can choose Add Contact and complete the form to add them to your application. Once that's been updated, you can choose Continue to proceed to the fun part, which is choosing the decal that you would like. So the 2 options here, well, 3 options really, but the 2 visual ones are choosing a blue and white decal or an etched look decal. You can see this is what the blue and white one looks like, sort of the classic color scheme. And then this is the etched one, and this is designed to look like it's been etched into your building. You'll also notice that these both offer a sort of little year subtext and then a certified building. If your building has been certified more than once, you'll also receive an anniversary decal that states the number of years that you've been certified, and that can be applied directly underneath the original, larger certification mark. Finally, you have the option to choose no decal, you just want your certificate. And in this case, you'll still receive a paper letter of congratulations and a paper certificate with your property's registry name on it. Here you'll also have the option to choose who should receive your award. The drop-down menu allows you to choose someone in your address book, but again, you have the option to add a contact here and edit an address. Finally, you're able to choose to whom the congratulatory letter should be addressed. Sometimes, this can be a group of folks, such as a PTA or, an administrative staff of a school, but it can also be a single person as well. I will also highlight here, please make sure this address is accurate and updated. You'll notice that this one is missing a street address. This is where we're going to mail your award when you're approved, and if it's not right, your award's gonna get lost. And so that results in delays across the board from our mailing shop, as well as you getting your award to display and to celebrate your property's achievement. So we really encourage you to double and triple check your property address, make sure there are suite and floor numbers, make sure your zip code is right, the whole bit. If you have to come back to this, you can save and return to the application widget by clicking out of it and then using that same finish application button that appeared next to your score in your property records homepage. Now, please note that decals are free and there is no charge associated with this recognition. But if you damage or lose your awards package or it just never comes for some reason, you can email us at energystar.gov/buildingshelp and we will be able to send you a new one. So once this has been completed and you're happy with it, go ahead and hit continue. So the next step is to fill out the eligibility details part of the application. On this page, you're going to be asked to select the 12-month period ending date for your energy consumption information, right up here at the top. Now you'll also be given a few other options. You may choose any one of these that you would like. They all are eligible dates as EPA defines it. Portfolio Manager will automatically select the most recent 12-month period for which there is complete data and use details, and for which your property has a sufficiently high score. However, of course, you can select other dates if you would like. Now here, I do want to highlight something called the 120-day rule, which is a rule stating that applications must be submitted within 120 days of this period ending date. So if you select this 12/31, you have until April, the end of April, to complete and submit your application. That may sound really easy, but if you need to do your site visit, if you have to do a lot of other work before submitting still, that can run by really fast, and we are not able to offer adjustments to that. You have to comply with that rule now to ensure that data is sufficiently recent and our scoring is up to date. However, if you submit and then have to make further changes as a result of reviewing, maybe you found a revision, maybe the review team found a revision, they are able to authorize that previous PED once you submit, even if that 120-day rule elapses while it's being reviewed and revised. So I'm going to choose December 31st, just for cleanliness today. And I'll move on to the alerts section. So you can see that I have a few alerts popping up here, a couple important ones. So we'll go through these one at a time and go over why they're important and how to address them. So Portfolio Manager automatically runs a range of checks on the data that you are submitting before you are submitting, and it produces these flags to alert you to anything that may prevent you from receiving recognition. Yellow exclamation marks like these, you can see, are passable with an explanation. So they're use details and meter issues that are not necessarily problems, they're just weird. And we want to make sure that you are submitting accurate data, even if it is weird. However, red stop signs are severe issues that need resolution before you can continue. And those have to be resolved before you can actually proceed to submit. So the first one here is that the number of computers as reported appears unusual for the occupancy for the year selected. So you can see that the typical value for an office building is 1.39 computers per worker, and I've entered 0.42, so less than 1 computer per worker. Now, in most office buildings, usually it's at least 1. So a good response here could be an explanation of how you verified that, confirmation that this has been verified, and that kind of thing. This response here is a little bit dry, but it's probably passable for our purposes. I'm going to make it a little better though. So we verified that this is accurate with the property manager, and we did a computer count during the site visit. So that confirms for the reviewer that this is a real number, this is not skewing your data, this is actually how the building is being used. Now, another issue that we're running into here is that there are repeating entries for our natural gas meter. There's 230 therms being reported for April of 2022 as well as March. This response is great. It confirms that you reviewed the bills and that these are accurate. You could even go further and say this is seasonally appropriate for springtime in this area. Not a lot of heat going on necessarily in March and April. This building is located in DC, which is a pretty temperate space, in my experience anyway. And so you're not going to have the heat really cranked in those months. So again, a great response here. You've confirmed that these numbers are accurate. The repeating is just a coincidence, and this is seasonally appropriate usage for the building in the location that it's in. Now, use details marked as temporary is a little bit different, and I'm going to make this a little bigger just because. So I've marked that there are temporary values being reported for the number of computers. And this is a flag because temporary values, flagging something as temporary, indicates to the review team that this value is a placeholder, that this is not a real number, this is not real data, and this is an estimate. And so we can see that in this case, the applicant, myself, and the EPA conception of temporary is kind of talking past one another here. So I'm reporting these as temporary because COVID is impacting the number of computers at the property. However, EPA thinks that I'm reporting a placeholder. So I'm going to clarify in this response, these are temporary because COVID is impacting the number of computers at the property, and it'll change back to normal. So this confirms that the number is, real, that we counted, but that the temporary value is temporary in reference to COVID and not in reference to the number being a placeholder. This is definitely a squishy, weird one, so please don't hesitate to send in questions. I'm happy to clarify that. Moving forward, workers on main shift. This is very similar to the computers alert that we did at the very beginning, where, it's just unusual because it's being compared to a typical value. It could be totally true. So we're going to confirm that this is accurate. We did a head count during a site visit. Verified. So again, that confirms this is real. These are real numbers. We checked this. Even though it's weird, it's right. That's all you need to do. Now, the last one is a special one because this one can flag even if there's nothing weird happening. So this comes up when your property reports on-site solar or wind energy. Now I've included an on-site solar meter in my property that we're applying for today. And that means that I need to provide some information about how I am benchmarking my solar energy to help EPA verify that I'm reporting this properly. So there's a couple questions that need answering before we can proceed here. The first one is, have you verified, have you reviewed the Green Power Technical Reference Document and or the on-site Green Power FAQs to confirm that your on-site solar is being accounted for correctly? And I'm going to say yes, because I personally have done this. If you get to this point in your application and you haven't, that's a great thing to do. It's also great to do when you're initially entering your meter to make sure that you're reporting things correctly from day one. This can be really confusing to enter, particularly if you are exporting energy back to the grid. And so we really encourage folks to be extra super careful with their entering of green power. I will also hype right now that we are having a benchmarking on-site renewables webinar next month. I believe it is February 22nd that is occurring. And if you have on-site renewables that you want to benchmark or make sure you're benchmarking correctly, please show up for that. Please review our recording. This is definitely a difficult thing to do, and so we encourage you to check all your boxes, make sure you're completely covered, because you want credit for that. So I'm going to confirm here, yes, I've reviewed these documents. No energy is being sent to the grid, and therefore the electric values are capturing 100% of the energy being generated on site. If you are exporting energy, you may need to do some calculations to verify that you're reporting just your consumed energy and not the total. But if you are unsure that you're benchmarking it correctly, or you want to, get the values corrected, you're welcome to email our help desk and they can go through it personally with you and make sure that this is coming out okay at your property. So that was a big one. These can be time consuming. The best thing to do is just to make sure that you are, first of all, oversharing. Tell us everything you can. That helps us not need to email you with any questions or clarifications. And make sure your numbers are correct. That is the key. Again, weird data can be right. We just want to make sure that it's just weird and not wrong. So now we can go ahead and click Save for Signatures. And this will continue us forward in the process. Now, once you've saved this, you'll need to generate your application for download. So I'm going to choose generate. These two are pretty old files. You can see I've used this application for this webinar more than once. So we're going to choose generate new application. And it will pop up as a PDF here. You can see my score is at the top. My name, my registry name, my GFA, and my period ending date all pop up here at the very top. These are key details about the property. And you'll see that you get an ineligibility date here at the bottom. And this is the date that you must submit by, or else the application has to be redone completely. So what you'll do now is you'll print this out, and the LP should take this with them to the site visit to verify each data point by marking yes or no. The LP should also use that site visit to verify the property meets indoor environmental quality standards for air quality, temperature, and illumination, as well as anything else the LP wants to report. We often get CO2 parts per million reported. Not required, but perfectly fine to report to us. So you'll see the LP needs to verify this is actually an office. It is located at this address. This is the GFA. There's one building. And you'll see that there's a header text here as well as a question. And the yes or no box is in reference to the question. When we get to the meter section, I'll go into that a bit more, but it's important to read all parts of the application before marking yes or no. And here we see the indoor environmental quality section. This is where the LP will verify and report their measurements about the indoor air quality situation. You'll see here that in the case of an audit of the application, the LP will be required to submit what's known as Appendix A, and that's provided from EPA to the audited property, but it gathers the actual measurements that are taken on site during the site visit, and so they are that's required as part of the audit. As you note, not submitting that when audited can result in a denial of the application. So after the IEQ section, we move into property use details. Broken out by use type, you can see that our number of workers is substantially higher than our number of computers, which is why that alert flagged earlier in the process. You can see our hours are 65, and we've reported that the whole property can be cooled. And these will also be verified by the LP during the site visit again. Moving into the third section, we start to get into our energy consumption data. This is some high-level overview information. You can see our site and source energy intensity, as well as our comparison to the national median, and our GHG emissions based on the reported data that we have given. We also get a list of our meters and some checkboxes confirming that this is the entire property's energy use, this is all of the energy, and we're not missing anything. Now, this on-site solar and wind energy is why I bring up that header text and question difference. Now you can see on-site solar wind energy. Maybe your property doesn't have any. Your instinct is to mark, no, there's none. Well, the question is actually, are all on-site solar and wind installations reported in this list? And so if you mark no, that tells the review team, no, there's something missing here. We need to ask them about it. And so this is a great way to avoid an email that is, you don't necessarily need to respond to or need to receive. If you can mark yes, we've accounted for all energy that is on site, all solar energy is being reported, etc., assuming it is. Then we see a breakdown of all the data for each of our meters. This is our electric grid meter. You can see our usage is here. The same is true for natural gas. And finally, for our solar. Now you'll note that a couple of these look a little different. Solar, of course, has an exported field. Natural gas is pretty straightforward, but our electric meter has the option to report green power as well. And if this is green power purchased from utility, you can mark yes in these fields when you're entering it into Portfolio Manager in your profile. So beyond each, you'll just verify that this is the total consumption for the meter, and continue. And at the very bottom down here, this is where the LP will mark off who completed the site visit, sign and date, write a stamp, and then the representative of the building owner or manager will sign and date there as well. Now, as we are getting to the end of this presentation, I'm going to plug one more time. Please go ahead and submit your questions if you have any. I'm happy to respond to those as best I can after the presentation. We will start the Q&A hopefully around 2 p.m. So please, yeah, don't hesitate. Now I'm going to pause here and go a bit more in depth into the site visit. Now, as mentioned before, the site visit needs to be performed by an LP or someone working under the direction of an LP, and they must verify the property details as well as the energy information on the application. This can be someone from your organization, so they can be an employee of your organization, but they must comply with all the guidelines and be willing to place their stamp and signature on the application, as well as assist with an unbiased assessment of the application. In terms of other requirements, they must possess a current license and be in good standing, have a working knowledge of the building systems in question, and be literate in their jurisdiction's engineering and architectural laws, ethics requirements, and regulations. We do accept PE licenses from Canada as well, and the LP does not need to be licensed in the same state as the building is located. So if I'm from Virginia and I have my PE license from Virginia, I can verify buildings anywhere in the country. The same is true throughout the country. So once we've completed that, presumably we have, printed this out, done our site visit, it's all complete, and we'll choose continue. And we're going to provide some more details about our site visit here. So after you have completed the site visit, you can enter the date that it occurred on. I'm going to say that it happened, maybe we'll say it happened today. And who completed it, as well as who verified it. So this is my licensed professional for today, myself, and I'm going to say my colleague Rose performed the actual visit. This is perfectly fine. LPs can use proxies, but if you are audited, if the application that you are submitting is audited, we will ask for a copy of the instructions that were given to the proxy to make sure that nothing was left out or, there were no misinformation issues happening. If the LP found discrepancies on the application during the site visit, choose yes. If not, of course, no. This yes will direct you back to the Portfolio Manager record to correct mistakes and then regenerate your application. You're also given the opportunity to check whether the verification was done for free or if it was paid. We do have some LPs that offer pro bono verification, some do not. That's up to you on that side of things. And once this is complete and you're happy with everything, choose continue. Now you'll notice that we skipped this revise and regenerate page, and that is because I marked no on the previous page. So sorry, backing up a little bit. We have marked no here. There's no further issues, so there's no need to revise and regenerate. If I marked yes and hit continue, it will take us to this revision page in which you will be able to make revisions by jumping to these sections or verify that you do not need to make any further revisions. I'm going to say I do not and choose continue. And at this point, you're going to be prompted to enter the application tracking number at the bottom. So I'll give you guys a fun little trick of mine. I'm going to copy and paste this over. Everyone's copied from PDFs. That's not the trick, don't worry. So you'll see here, the first 3 digits are APP, application. The second several, this is 8, are the date that it was generated. So this is February 2nd, 2023. This is version 2 of the application, and this is the property ID. So if you're ever unsure of the application tracking number for whatever reason, you can reconstruct it from those numbers if you know them. If not, it appears at the bottom of every single page of the application PDF. And then you'll proceed to attest that it's been signed and stamped by everyone involved. All boxes are checked and the tracking numbers match. Please do note here, the application file cannot be more than 5 megabytes and should be in a PDF format. If it's greater than that size, you can use an online compressor or save it as a reduced size PDF in Acrobat. And this is just because our system doesn't like big files. Now, I'm not going to proceed with this because my application is for a fake building and I don't want to get it into our queue and mess up our numbers. But at this point, you would attach your signed and completed document here and then click submit. You'll receive a prompt to enter your portfolio manager username and password to validate your credentials and e-sign the application that way. And it will enter our review queue and you'll hopefully not receive any emails from us until it's approved. So now, after we've finished this, done all this work, let's go ahead and track our application through until approval. So I'm going to stop sharing screen and jump us forward to that little image. And so you'll see here that you can view the status of your applications on the Recognition tab. And this includes, the statuses do include submitted, under review, escalated to expert, questions for applicant, revise and regenerate, not approved, or approved. You'll also see the status change to award sent once your award package has been mailed to you. If you see a status of questions for applicant or revised application required, but you did not receive an email, you can definitely reach out to us to get that resent to you. Occasionally they get bounced or there's typos, stuff happens, but just let us know and we can resend you that information. It typically takes about 1 to 2 weeks to review and process an application, assuming that there are no major issues found. You'll have 30 days to respond to any questions from EPA, if there are any, and if you don't respond in that time frame and don't contact us, the application will expire. Once the application is approved, you'll receive a congratulatory letter, certificate, and a decal in usually 4 to 6 weeks. This does take longer at the end of the year as you receive a sort of a spike in applications, and it is impacted by any USPS difficulties as we do ship using USPS. Our annual deadline is usually in December, so we receive a lot more applications around that time frame, and review time will take up to 4 weeks in that part of the year. Again, it can take longer if there are major issues with the application. And one final note is that the Energy Star certification is not good forever. It represents the accomplishment of your property in a given year. And if you want to continue demonstrating that superior performance, you'll need to kind of re-up each year according to the schedule that fits your needs. So if you apply with a PED of, say, June 30th, you can reapply in 11 months and you could be on that offset cycle. You know, you don't have to stick to calendar year, although you can if you would prefer. It's really up to you, whatever works best for your building. And once you're awarded, you can communicate your achievements. You're encouraged to display your decal near the entrances of your building And there are a couple of ready-to-use materials that come to your organization in your congratulations email once you're approved. You can consider things like a newsletter article, an email blast, a blog post, or any other announcements that you think would reach your community well. We do have a website that is available on that slide right there that has some further ideas and materials to promote your achievement. These are a couple examples. You can frame this however you'd like. You'll see on the left there, this office has chosen to frame that it uses 41% less energy than the average building. You're also able to advertise this on your site as a point of interest, as you would like. So to recap today, we have covered the value of Energy Star certification and the eligibility requirements. We've covered how to apply for the certification in Portfolio Manager and some best practices for doing so. And we covered how to track the status of your applications in the tool through until you receive your awards package. We have some extra help opportunities available on this slide. Again, these are going to be live links when you receive this PowerPoint in your email. And these contain step-by-step documents, more videos, as well as our trainings calendar. This training is given every quarter, and you can review recordings at your leisure. And so with that, we can move into our Q&A. Thank you all very much for attending. If you have questions, please drop them in the chat so Maddie can gather them. And if you are needing to leave us, thank you for joining. Please do take a minute to fill out that survey that will populate in your browser. We use that information very heavily to improve our program. And so we really appreciate if you're able to give us your feedback and impressions. And so with that, I'm going to chug some water and we can start on our Q&A. Awesome. Okay. Some great questions here. Thank you all. I hope folks have not had to drop too much. So we have a question about manufactured buildings. So it depends on the use of the building. You're always welcome to benchmark. There is a program specifically for industrial buildings, which it seems like this may be. So I'm sending an article in the chat that will help you kind of determine based on your property. This is one that if you're unsure, you may find it useful to contact the help desk and they can do like more of a deep dive into your building's use patterns to determine where it best fits. But here's a FAQ article about manufactured and industrial plant types that can be eligible. But even if not, you're always welcome to benchmark only. There's a question about biotechnology labs being eligible. So the answer for that one is unfortunately not. But you are, again, always welcome to benchmark. I will go ahead and send that FAQ in the chat as well. This one's useful for laboratories. And benchmarking can provide you with, a huge host of useful metrics that you can operationalize at your property, even if you cannot receive that score. There's a question about specific requirements for the PE, the professional engineer. So I'm going to go ahead and send a link to this licensed professional guide. This is going to have a really in-depth overview of what the LP needs to do at the site visit. This is a PDF that we update regularly. So if you are unsure about anything, please email us and we can clarify whatever you need clarified. But that's a great resource. I personally use it all the time. in reviewing applications. Recommend that really well. There's also a follow-on question there about whether building automation system screenshots are sufficient to verify building environmental conditions. So this answer is a little bit squishy. The answer is really no, because we need to see those numbers outright. We are requiring Appendix A be submitted for audits. However, if you gather the information from the building automation system, the BAS, if that's where you're reporting it from, that should probably be fine. But again, during the audit, it is such an in-depth process that we can discuss it if your building is audited. There's a question about finding an LP. This is a good question. So there's not a lot of complexity to it. We have an LP finder here, but the person that verifies the application does not need to be on that finder. It can be any licensed professional or architect who fits the other eligibility criteria. And I would assume, most do, being in good standing, having a current license, those kinds of things. So if you know an architect or an engineer, you can use them. You're also more than welcome to use an LP from that listing that is linked in the chat. Question about audits. This is a good question. So I think, as someone who does help out with those audits, a good rule of thumb there is the same as with the application. So just overshare, tell us all that you can about your property. If we have questions, we will follow up, but the best way to start is just tell us everything that you can about the question. And I guess if I had to say another, best practice, just making sure that you're submitting all the data that is requested. The audits can end up requesting a lot. We ask for utility bills as well as the IEQ measurements. If you're ever unsure about what needs to be submitted, you can respond to the question or to the email that you receive, and the audit team will get back to you and clarify anything or help you figure out what needs to be submitted to us. The review team is all humans, and we're happy to help out if we can when we can. Awesome. And I think our last question so far is if there is a minimum number of units needed to apply for Energy Star. And the answer is two or more. So we have an FAQ that Maddie has pulled for us. Thank you, Maddie. And I'll put that in the chat. There's some other multifamily requirements there, but 2 or more units per building, 20 or more per campus. And it looks like that is maybe all of our questions. Oh, no, we have a follow-up. So the question is whether you should submit Appendix A with all of your applications. That's fine if you want to. You don't have to. It won't impact whether you're pulled for an audit. We have some sort of back-end parameters for how we decide which properties to audit. In short, it's random, but we don't audit the same properties twice. So if you want to submit Appendix A with all your applications, that is more than welcome. But you can also just wait until you're audited and do it then. Thank you all for your questions. It looks like that is all that we have gotten. I'll hang on for another minute or two in case someone is typing. But thank you all for your time and your attention, and I appreciate you coming out today or staying in today, whichever it may be. All right, seeing no further questions, I think we can drop for today. Thanks again, everyone, and hope to see you on our PM 101 sessions and on our benchmarking on-site renewables session in February. Thanks again. Bye.